Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. And finally I've decided to bite the bullet and finish up this series by pretty much taking you through how I've animated the female character to the cover that I made for Lord Huron the night we met. I didn't really record the process of creating the whole thing because that would have taken God knows how long. But I've decided to just kind of walk you through everything that I've done, from poses to animation to rendering to lighting and camera works, shape keys, and etc. So let's begin. I just wanted to make a quick comment about the teeth. So before, if I hide the body, so before the teeth were one object. So I've separated the top and bottom row of the teeth, and the top teeth I've parented that to the head bone, this big one here, and the bottom teeth is still parented to the jawbone, because before, when there was the one object, when I moved the jawbone, you know, both top and bottom teeth moved, and I didn't really think about that because I needed to animate her, you know, speaking. This is still not, you know, exactly optimal, because that means the top teeth is only controlled by when the head moves back and forth, but for all intents and purposes for the video I made, you didn't really get to see the top teeth that much anyway. Alternatively, what you can do is take the top teeth, basically just create a new bone, and then to make sure that bone doesn't deform, and then if you parent the top teeth to the new bone, then you can just move that bone and move the top teeth position independently that you want. And obviously the new teeth controller parent that to the head bone as well, so that, you know, everything moves as one object pretty much. So enough about the teeth. Well, let's talk a little bit about poses. So if you click the armature and go into pose mode, so if you click on the little man icon on the right hand side, you have this pose library, and I've created a pose library for, you know, body motion of her playing guitar and her head motion and all that, but I lost it, didn't save it, so now I've just created a new library to but fortunately I saved all the keyframes, which means that, you know, the whole video still plays, thank God, but we just don't have the poses. So I've just created a new library to show you how to make poses. So for example, if I want to make her eyebrows move up, I can grab these bones, for example like that, and I can just click the add button, add new, so you can just eyebrows up, and that's pretty much already saved. If I, for example, click open eyes, this is one of the poses of just kind of resting face. Let's make a really crazy pose. Display the bones in front. Let's just, I don't know, grab her hand, move it up, you know, body, like make her really do crazy things. And let's just save all of this as crazy. Now this means that because I highlighted every bone is now saved in this crazy pose for this specific setup. So let's put her back to the final resting pose. So if, for example, I just want to take the hand bone and get the hand bone to the position of crazy, then I just click hand bone and then click this button. See, now only the hand moves. But if I want, for example, all of it, then you know, select all of it, and then, you know, all of it will become like that. So this makes it really easy to, for example, save poses that are specifically just for facial expressions, or, you know, arm movements and things like that. And to animate her, what I did was I recorded the song with the guitar playing and everything in the background, and as I played it in the background, I took my marker to the first frame, or 0th frame, and then I just press, you know, spacebar to let it run. And as the song plays, for example, every time she says a word or something, you just hit M. The M key adds a marker. So as, you know, she went along, it'll be like, you know, I am not the only traveler. So every time she kind of enunciated, I just pressed M. So then I had all of the words, and then, you know, painstakingly go through every frame and then move her face to it. And of course I saved some facial expressions, for example, you know, the vowels A, E, I, O, U, you know, you move her face to it, save that as a pose, and then that, you know, saves a lot of time when you actually do the whole thing. Saving vowels and some consonants, and, you know, the sound or the the T sound, or me, you know, T sounds like me. So yeah, it's a lot of painstaking work. But that's mainly for the face. Now that's layer 1. Now layer 2 is the guitar playing. So there was only 4 chords to the song, which meant that all I had to do for the guitar playing was, you know, save her hand motion, her right hand, to play 4 chords. As I play it, her, like this hand, pretty much only cycles through 4 chords. It's just the same 4 chords. I think it's E minor, D, G, and C. And then the right hand side, because it's a finger plucking song, dun, 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 using 4 fingers and plucking the string. So if I keep playing it, you can see her left hand pretty much just cycles through thumb, index, middle finger, ring finger. Okay, if I keep moving, you can see she's also rocking back and forth. After I've pretty much programmed in the face and the hand, I just added in a bit more movement to make it look more fluid. Now to add a keyframe, all you pretty much have to do is, for example, go to a specific frame and, you know, you kind of highlight everything and then click I, and then, go to here, I, insert keyframe all channels. So it just saves, you know, every single bone. And now another way to make it easier for you to not have to press I every time to add a keyframe is just to click this little button here. So now every time I move to any random frame, if I say, you know, grab the eye bone and move it here, every time I move or rotate or do anything to it, it will automatically save. This is kind of an easy way to just do a lot of things at once. But be very careful, because sometimes if you forget that it's on and you save up and you move some armature, but you don't actually want that to be the saved version, then, you know, it will save it anyway. So be careful of turning this on and off. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of the hair. So there's a lot of different ways you can animate hair. And for example, you can actually rig it up by just adding bones to, you know, each individual hair strands, which I actually did for the news video of the superhero landing for Wonder Woman, which I'll do a future video on. But for this specific video, I thought you didn't really need that much motion of the hair, so all I did was add in some shape keys. So shape keys are what you use when you, for example, have a mesh and you deform it in some way and you want to save that specific deformation. Here you can see I've already created a few keys, so the hair moving left and etc. And these here are the values, so how much of that specific a specific shape you want of, and ranges from 0 to 1. So as I play the animation, you can see the numbers change. That's because I've added in keyframes to all of the values at specific, you know, time frames. So basically, to animate them, let's say at the 0th frame, everything's at 0. I want, say, I don't know, the first frame to be at 1. Then I just take this, pull it to 1, click this button here, and now, because that will basically, or click I, for example, to insert the keyframe. Now for that specific frame, it will look like this. So if I go away and I come back, you can see the 0th frame will look like this. Now, to create a keyframe, to create a shape key, we need to okay, let's just turn this down to 0. So we start with, you know, the base mesh. I'm gonna add, and let's call this, I don't know, test. This is just a test. And then I go into edit mode, and then now I can do whatever I want. So let's I don't know, grab this and move it here. So I don't know, this will now be the new shape key for this test thing. So if I go back to object mode, you see it disappeared because at the 0th frame I now have everything set to 0. But if I, for example, want to show what we just saved, I just take test and bring it all the way to 1, for example. That's what we saved. And if I want to save this as a keyframe, let's click that, and now this keyframe will have this specific value at 1. If I move it back, as you can see, and also in addition to this, I've also saved the hair moving left to 1. So now this is a combination of these two, and we have a mixed shape key. As I play the animation, you can see that her hair kind of moves back and forth, left and right, and I just did this manually so that whenever she tilted her head back, the hair followed, just to make it look more realistic. In terms of the camera work, so you can see that if I go into this camera view, if you click N, for example, in the viewport, you can actually lock the camera to view so that when you move, the camera moves with you. And if you take that away, if you move it, then you're back to the 3D viewport. So if I lock the camera to view, or it doesn't matter, if I play the animation, the camera has a really smooth motion and it's always following her whenever it rotates or moves. And to do that, basically, I've created an empty. So there's an empty here, and to do that, you just know Shift Add Empty Plane Axes. I've created the empty, and I've parented the camera to the empty, so that whenever the empty rotates, for example, the camera rotates with it. This is a really easy way of, just making sure that your camera always tracks whatever object you're looking at. Before, I think for my very first video ever, I put the camera on a track, but then it had all these issues when it randomly just rotated in a really weird rotated on its own axis and pointed in a different direction. So it's much easier with this empty method. The background is pretty much just a screen, and to make the screen, you take, for example, I can just make one now. I take a plane. For example, like this, and in edit mode, I'm just gonna grab this edge and extrude it upwards, and then I'm gonna take these and basically Control B to bevel, so like that. This makes like a very nice smooth curved edge, and then of course you, for example, shade smooth, and then just add a shading material to it. Whatever color, I pick yellow, I think. Go into material mode. Yeah, I pick yellow. So that's pretty much the setup. It's super easy. The light I have is just a point light source of like 50,000 watts, so it lights up everything. It's almost like studio lighting where there's not a lot of shadows. The last thing I want to talk about is rendering. So I used Eevee for the rendering engine, and it's a lot faster than Cycles, but Cycles make things look more realistic, and I'll do a video in the future about Cycles. So if you've seen the superhero landing short clip of the Wonder Woman one, that was done in Cycles. But in Eevee, to make it look decent, all you gotta do is click ambient occlusion, click bloom, click screen space reflection, and make sure that the refraction thing is ticked, because this only has importance when you talk about glass material. If you look at our character, my eyeball, the outside of this eyeball is actually made of glass, or like a glass transparent material. And in Eevee, if I don't have refraction turned on, you can see that it pretty much almost acts like a mirror in which it's just reflecting ambient light, and that's not really good. So make sure you turn that on so that you can actually see her eyeballs. Yes, that's the main issue. And having ambient occlusion is pretty much just kind of giving you an extra light from the background, and it just makes it look a bit better. So make sure those are turned on. In terms of performance, sampling is one of the biggest factors of that determines whether or not your render will take a really long time or not that long. So for the render, if I pick, for example, 1, and let's say I don't know, pick a random frame, I don't know, let's pick this frame, and let's render the image. If I have 1 sampling, it took like less than a second to render. Like the shadowing is really weird, there's a bit of noise, and it's not very good. But if I turn it up to, I don't know, I think I used 32 for this video, I rendered it again, it takes a little longer this time, maybe like 4 to 5 seconds. Yeah, 4 to 5 seconds, but you can see that the shadows are a lot softer, it looks a more natural lighting, it's just better. If you have a really complicated lighting setup, like if you have a lot of shadows going on, then you're gonna need a lot higher sampling for your render. But because for this video I have almost just very bright lights and very little shadows, I could get away with quite a small render sample. Finally, for the output, make sure that you select a directory for your rendered file, and I usually use, I don't know, ffmpeg. That works fine for the video. If you click render, you have to make sure you click render animation in order to, you know, get this to work for the output to go to your desktop. If you just click render image, it will just render the current frame and it won't actually save it. And this is mainly just to check that, you know, all the rendering looks good and you can go on with the animation. But make sure that if you do click render image and you want to save the image, you got to save it manually. So pretty much that's a very quick brief walkthrough of what I did to animate her. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the future videos.